So let's talk about the areas of interest now. You'll see that you have 10 scores. Now everybody gets the same 10 scores, but of course they will be in different orders and with different orders of magnitude for them. In this version of the report we don't have any numbers, so I can't really talk about high and low scores or tell you about the break-off points. So what I suggest for this using Preview, it's probably best for most people to focus on your 3 longest bars and maybe your 2 shortest bars. The ones in the middle are what I'd call okay scores. They're things that you could be involved in and probably get some enjoyment out of, but they won't be the most important thing in the world for you. But let's focus on the top and the bottom ones. So these areas of interest are basically motivational scores. They have broad applicability. So you'll find as we go through, if you may be thinking, well, what's musical got to do with an organizational environment? The answer is plenty, and I'll explain that very quickly as we go through. So they're not just narrow definitions. You see artistic, it's not really telling you whether you can paint or draw or not. Which brings me to the next point. These are not a measure of skill or aptitude. They are about motivation and engagement. How much does this area matter to you? If you've got a long bar, we're saying it matters to you a lot. If you've got a short bar, not only may it not matter to you, but you might actually have some aversion to it. You might prefer not to be involved in this. There are no good or bad scores. A long bar isn't a good score. A short bar isn't a bad score. It's simply telling us something about you. And these are a guide to occupational engagement. If we look at your areas of interest and look at the job you're doing, we should be able to tell pretty accurately how much you are enjoying that job. So let me go very quickly through these 10 in alphabetical order. Now you'll see there's a dictionary on the page. Each score has a little definition. So do read those, but here's my short version of what these are about. So starting with artistic, this is actually a measure of how much visual impact matters to you. If you've got a long bar on this, it means that the visual impact of things is very important. If you've got a short bar, then it's not important, or even you'd rather not be involved in worrying about how things look. And yes, of course, it can go with having developed artistic skill and so on, but not necessarily. I know people with maximum scores on this who couldn't draw a cat to save their lives, but it's how much does this visual impact matter to you? So that's artistic. Clerical, sometimes people talk about this as the admin score, but really fundamentally it's about how much does order matter to you. So people with a long bar on this will get great satisfaction about getting things in order. As children, people with a long bar on this will often have collected things, stamps, insects on pins, that kind of thing. As adults, sometimes they collect music CDs or Ming vases or whatever, but there's something about having things in order that appeals to people with a long bar for this. If you've got a short bar, you may absolutely understand that order and system and so on matters, but you'd rather someone else did it. That brings us to the next one, literary. Now, literary is not about whether you are going to be the next great novelist, although it could have that implication. It's really telling us how much do words and ideas matter to you. People with a very long bar on literary will tend to care a lot about words and ideas. People who have a short bar will not want to spend a lot of time trying to choose the exact way of saying something. So the next one would be mechanical. As the name suggests, mechanical is about how excited you can get about technology, machinery, and working with tools and so on. Fundamentally, it has an aspect of being very hands-on. So people with a long bar for mechanical will tend to prefer doing things in a hands-on way, whether that's a practical task or whether it's problem solving in an organizational setting. People with a short bar on this, if something breaks down, they prefer not to have to muck around with it. They'll get someone else to sort it out. Musical. Now, as I suggested before, musical is not just about whether you can play the violin or not. And in fact, I know plenty of people with a long bar on musical who aren't musical in an obvious sense. They don't play an instrument, they can't sing in tune. But again, it's telling us how much does your sound environment matter to you. Now, for many people with a high musical score, that will convert to at least listening to music a lot. And high musical people often use music to adjust their mood. They'll put different kinds of music on depending on what they're trying to accomplish and so on. More fundamentally, it is about being in control of your sound environment. So if you've got a long bar on musical and you have to cope in an open plan office where lots of people have conversations on phones and so on, you may really struggle with that. A short bar on this, you may still listen to music, you may enjoy listening to music, but if we said to you, we're going to take away your music for 3 months, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world. Okay, next one is numerical. As the name suggests, it's about numbers, but also about the analysis of data. So people with a long bar on this will tend to get a lot of satisfaction about working with numbers and about analyzing data. People with a short bar may understand the numbers really matter, but they're not going to die if they don't get to see the spreadsheet this week. And if they're running a business, they'll probably do it more on gut instinct than by knowing the numbers at every second along the way. Next one, outdoor. So a long bar on outdoor suggests that it's not going to be good for you if we lock you away at a cubicle in the middle of a building with no natural light, because you need to get outside. You need to be able to get outdoors. Get outdoors at lunchtime, get outdoors to go and see clients or whatever it is that's in your business. Being desk bound will not work for you very well if you've got a long bar on outdoor. And fundamentally, it is telling us how much you would enjoy a job that meant you had to be outdoors most of the time, particularly in all weathers. Now, people with a short outdoor bar can still enjoy looking at nature and so on, but they wouldn't want to get any of it on them. After outdoor, I guess that takes us to persuasive. Persuasive is, again, as it sounds, it is kind of about selling, although some people with a long bar on persuasive don't want to be described as salespeople. Nonetheless, when we watch them in operation, they are often very enthusiastic and persuasive in the way that they communicate with others. It's basically saying you get a lot of enjoyment out of that persuasive interaction with other people. People with a short bar on persuasive, on the other hand, they may sell in what they do, but the way that they sell is likely to be, this is it, take it or leave it. They don't enjoy that whole thing of negotiation, that to and fro dance that goes on for people who are high on persuasive. Remember again though, it's not about skill, it's about motivation. So someone with a low score on persuasive may still be an effective salesperson, but they're unlikely to do it just by a typical enthusiastic selling style. Next one is scientific. Scientific can or may not map onto how you felt about science at school. I'd say about half the people with a high scientific score actually didn't enjoy science very much at school, and I suspect that may be to do with the way that they were taught. Fundamentally, this one is about a need to get to the bottom of things, a passion about getting to the bottom of things, understanding why things are the way they are. Now, although there are other people who will ask why for other reasons, if you are high on scientific, you probably catch yourself asking why quite often. But it's fundamentally about, do you get excited about getting to the bottom of a question? If you're low on scientific, then you may or may not enjoy research kind of projects, but getting to why probably isn't the most important thing in your life. And then finally, social service. Now again, this is not telling us whether you would be happiest working in the social services. It's much more about how much it matters to you that you make a difference to people. Now I say that some people get a lot of pleasure out of making a practical difference to people because they have a high mechanical score. But high social service tends to be the full range of helping people. So, you know, sort of practically, spiritually, economically, financially, just that sense of, even by listening, I've made a difference to this person, and whether it's one person or huge numbers of people. When we work, as we often do with not-for-profit organisations, we do, of course, tend to find quite a few people in those environments who have very high social service scores. But the fact that someone in a not-for-profit has a low social service score is just telling us their motivation comes from somewhere else. So social service is basically about how passionate and how excited do you get by that sense of, I've made a difference to this person or this group of people. So I hope that helps. That's the areas of interest.